It's that time of year again. It's the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs ready to debut today. We have the first matchup starting today here on Saturday. We have already done our first round predictions in an earlier video. Today I reveal my entire bracket, including my pick for this year's Stanley Cup champion. We'll get into that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we're doing some NHL bracket revealing here today. Of course, we already did a playoff prediction video here in the past 48 hours. That was mainly my first round predictions to get on my early thoughts in the first round. Now that the NHL bracket challenge through the NHL website is open, we've created a league, of course, for everybody to submit their brackets just to have fun as a group to see who can get the most picks right and ultimately have the most points and declare themselves the best at making predictions here. But I want to go through and reveal my entire bracket. Now, in that other video, I gave some thoughts on what I thought might happen, beyond the first round a little bit, just very quickly. We didn't really analyze anything or look at anything, data-wise per se. So what we're going to do for this one is I'm going to go on to the NHL website where you can do the bracket challenge, and I'm going to go through each matchup. We'll look at the analysis that the NHL provides with all the data, and I'll give you my picks for each one, including my Stanley Cup winner. So let's hop onto the computer. We'll go through each series, and I'll give you my full bracket reveal. Okay, so as we can see here, we're now on the NHL Bracket Challenge website. So here is your full empty bracket. We got Dallas versus Vegas, Winnipeg versus Colorado, Vancouver versus Nashville, Edmonton versus LA in the West. Of course, in the East, we got Florida, Tampa, Boston, Toronto, New York, Washington, and Carolina, and the Islanders. So let's go through each of these series one at a time. We'll take a look at the analysis, and I'll give you my thoughts and predictions. So if you watch my other video with my first round predictions, there won't be a lot of surprises here. But looking at Dallas and Vegas, obviously, I did select Dallas to win this series. If you take a look here, they have an edge in pretty much every statistical category. They have a better power play. They have a better penalty kill. They're allowing fewer goals per game. They're scoring more goals per game on average. Of course, had a better record in the regular season. Their leading scorers had more production. At the end of the day, the thing with Vegas here is, of course, is the injuries. Like Stone and Pietrangelo, are they going to be available in that first game? Are they going to be available in the series? We don't know. So we know Vegas has been notorious here for players coming back, but mostly Mark Stone. So they can make a huge impact. But at the end of the day, I think even with Stone and Pietrangelo in the lineup, Vegas could certainly prove us wrong. And I've learned over the years not to bet against them because they quite often will prove you wrong. But Dallas, to me, is just a really, really good team. I'm surprised Vegas dropped that last game of the regular season. I would have thought they would have preferred to play the Oilers. And maybe it wasn't a case of them doing anything intentionally. It's hard to say. But they end up with the powerhouse Dallas Stars. So, to me, like I said, I think Dallas has equal or better goaltending. Ottinger, if he's on his game, will be the better goalie in the series. Vegas probably has the better blue line. Dallas certainly has more offense, and I like their depth, but Vegas has pretty good depth too. But this is a banged-up team that's played a lot of hockey, and if they're missing two of their leaders, then it's certainly hard to pick them. So I am picking Dallas, but I do think it's going to be a long, hard-fought series. Winnipeg, Colorado, as I mentioned, Winnipeg has owned the Avalanche in the regular season this year. Looking at the breakdown here, of course, they finished slightly ahead of the Avalanche in the standings. Goals per game, edge to Colorado. Goals against, edge to the Winnipeg Jets and the Jennings Trophy winning Connor Hellebuyck. Power play was certainly edge to Colorado, and neither team was awesome on the penalty kill, but slight edge to the Avalanche. And of course, the Avalanche do have the higher octane offense with Nathan MacKinnon leading the way with 138 points. So at the end of the day here, Winnipeg knows how to play this team. Like I said, they've beaten them all three times in the regular season. I know that's not everything, but when it comes to goaltending and defense, I do give the edge to Winnipeg, and it's not close, to be honest. Alexander Georgiev is not in the same category as Connor Hellebuyck. And overall, defensively, the systems, the team, the personnel on the Jets are much better. I'm honestly quite surprised in the result of the Jets' penalty kill this year, given what they are as a defensive team. It's a kind of an anomaly, if you will. So ultimately, the Winnipeg Jets, to be successful here, is they're going to have to be disciplined. They're going to have to stay out of the box, because if they give that Avalanche power play too many times, I don't care how good Connor Hellebuyck is, they will get enough in the net to make a difference. I can see this series going long and deep, 6-7 games, but I did pick the Winnipeg Jets to come out on top in this one. But again, it's really difficult and challenging for me to bet against that Avalanche high octane offense. But quite often, defense wins championships. That's what I keep telling myself, at least, as I've made this selection. Vancouver, Nashville. It's going to be an interesting series. So we have a couple of things here. We have two of the coaches that are likely going to be in the running for Coach of the Year with Rick Tocchet and Andrew Burnett. Two of the game's top defensemen with Quinn Hughes and Roman Josi going head-to-head. Statistically, of course, the Canucks finished much higher in the standings, 109 points to 99. They scored at a higher rate. They gave up goals at a lower rate. So goals for and against, edge Canucks. Power play, edge Canucks, but not drastically. And again, just like the other series in Winnipeg, Colorado, the penalty kill edge goes to the Canucks as well. So every statistical category, including their leading scorers having more points, is pointing towards Vancouver. But Nashville might not have been a high-ranked team for the entire season. But that last, I don't know what it was, 20 to 25 games, they were on fire. Ever since Andrew Burnett canceled that trip of theirs to Vegas, they turned things around in a hurry. And that certainly, even though it seemed like a questionable move at the time, it worked, and it worked wonderfully well. But to me, I think Saros is a great goalie. Demko's had the better season, so I'm going to give an edge there to Vancouver. I do think that Nashville, they have some good experience over there with Ryan McDonough, Ryan O'Reilly, Nyquist. Like, these guys know how to win. They've done it before. So I do think that could play a factor here, and I think it'll push the series maybe a little further than some might think, but I am going to give the edge to Vancouver and go with a maximum 6-game series win. Edmonton, LA for the third consecutive year. We know these two teams like to play each other. The Oilers have won every other time, and I'm picking them again. The Oilers ultimately outscored these LA Kings players. They did not allow fewer goals, but we know the Kings have a pretty solid defensive system. Power play is not close, edge Edmonton, and penalty kill is not close, edge LA. So LA typically employs a 1-3-1 system. It does clog up the neutral zone a lot. They are good defensively. They are on a strong penalty kill, which explains why Cam Talbot had a, bounce back season, you could say. At the end of the day, I think the Oilers have always found a way to break through that, and they will do it again. In this series, you're going to see the Edmonton Oilers take advantage of the power play. Stuart Skinner, I think, will be able to outduel Cam Talbot. He had a good season as well. And you got a lot more offense on the Edmonton Oilers side. And even though defense can oftentimes win championships, as I've said multiple times here, I don't see a case where they will be able to outdo this offense. I think this offense is just way too strong. So we're going to go advantage Edmonton, and we're going to call that a 6-game series. So I got to put my games in here. So I'm going to say Dallas, I'm going to say in 7, Winnipeg in 6, Vancouver, I'm going to say 5, and Edmonton in 6. Now, of course, that's for the bonus round. Now, let's jump over, before we do round 2 there, let's jump over to round 1 in the East. Florida, Tampa, I did pick the Panthers to win. I think they're the better team here. They certainly, if you look at the stats, the Lightning actually scored a little bit of a higher rate, but the goals against drastically different. Florida way better defensively. The power play, they both have really good power plays, but edge Lightning for sure, best in the league. Penalty kill, slight edge to the Lightning as well. So Tampa actually outperformed Florida in the special teams game, which is surprising. However, Florida found more ways to win. They gave up a lot less. And they do have some pretty high-octane offense as well with Reinhart and Barkov and Kachuk and Verhaeghe and, all of their guys back there on the back end like Montour and Ekblad. And, those guys can bring it from the back end too. So, and ultimately here, the thing about Tampa is I know Sergachev looks like he might play. He's been banged up, obviously dealing with a pretty serious injury. Vasilevsky's hard to predict, but hasn't been full Vasilevsky all year. Not to say that he can't find it. I just think the Lightning, they're getting a little bit older. They've played a ton of hockey, and I just think this upstart Panthers team is a little bit nastier, and they will take them down in probably 6 games. Boston-Toronto is going to be a fun series. Of course, they have a lot of history. The Bruins have beaten the Leafs in some pretty critical series during the last decade. The Leafs have not won a playoff series against the Bruins since 1959. They've also lost the last, I think we're going back to 3 seasons before they won a regular season game against them as well. I know this year, and I believe last year, if I'm not mistaken, there was a sweep in the season series for the Bruins. I think it's like 9 games or something like that in a row that they've won. Regular season wise, it looks like it could be a bit of a coin toss. The Leafs scored at a higher rate. The Bruins allowed less. So, of course, again, not a huge disparity there, but enough that, Boston definitely better defensively, Toronto better offensively. Power play, they're both pretty good. Slight edge to Toronto. On a penalty kill, edge to Boston. So a lot of people are calling this a coin toss. At the end of the day, last year, the Leafs slayed their demons with the Lightning. I think they're going to slay their demons with the Bruins. They've had a lot to overcome against this team. The Bruins have been spoiling the party for the Leafs for, like I said, look at the last, I think, 2 or 3 series they've played in the last, 10 years. Like it's crazy the meltdowns the Leafs have had against this team. Until the Leafs score the winning goal and the buzzer goes off in the final game, I will not count the Bruins out. They like to come back and spoil things for Toronto, but I am going to say this year the Leafs will overcome them and get that monkey off their back and beat the Bruins. So I'm picking Toronto, which will set up a rematch of Toronto, Florida. Rangers, Caps, and Islanders, Canes, I don't think are going to be super close. All pretty much indicators here that the Rangers should handle the Capitals with relative ease. They have an edge in every statistical category, not to mention that they've had a way better season. The Capitals have one of the worst goal percentages to get into the playoffs ever. It's a miracle they got in. It's surprising some of the other teams that could not get in and have just a little bit better year. Like we were all expecting big jumps in the Atlantic from Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa. We only really seen that in Detroit, and they didn't make it all the way into the playoffs. So the Capitals are lucky that those teams didn't fare a little bit better, or they wouldn't be where they are. So I'm picking the Rangers. That's not going to be a close series, I don't think. Carolina Islanders, I think Carolina should win this series with relative ease as well. Pretty well all the statistical categories point towards Carolina having the edge. They score more. They give up less. They have a better power play. They have a better penalty kill. Freddie Anderson's been absolutely on fire since he's been back. I suspect he'll start game 1. And they've added Jake Gensel to the deadline, which I thought was a phenomenal addition. He's played really well for them. And I think the Hurricanes will go over the Islanders with relative ease. Now, in the number of games here, I'm going to say Florida Tampa has potential to go 7. Toronto Boston has potential to go 7. I'm going to say Rangers Caps are going to be a sweep, and Canes Islanders are going to go 5. All right, round 2. Dallas, Winnipeg. That's going to be a tough series. Now, looking at these two teams, not a lot of difference in the standings here. If this comes to be, then they're going to be 1-2 in the Central Division here. Goals per game, Dallas has scored at a higher rate. Goals against per game, edge Winnipeg. So, again, Winnipeg's a better defensive team. Dallas a little bit better offensively. So that will offset, hopefully. Power play, way better on the Dallas side, and same with the penalty kill. However, this Winnipeg team was streaky this year. They finished the season, I think, on an 8-game winning streak. Connor Hellebuyck, I think, has the ability to outduel Jake Ottinger. And this Winnipeg offense had a lot of times where they had players in and out of the lineup, prime example being Gabe Vilardi. I think if the Winnipeg Jets can stay healthy, they can take down this Dallas Stars team. Like a blowout one way or the other. I think this series could go back and forth a lot, maybe even go 7 games. But at the end of the day, I am going to pick Winnipeg here. I know statistically it's all leaning towards Dallas, probably more so, but I'm picking the Jets. I think they can overcome what Dallas is bringing them. Now, Vancouver versus Edmonton will be interesting. An all-Canadian matchup in round 2. I would have to give edge to Edmonton here. Edmonton will have a slight, not really a slight penalty kill edge, a big power play edge. Goals against is pretty similar, 2-7 to 2-8, but goals for slight edge to Edmonton, sorry. Vancouver's been a pretty high-scoring team too. Ultimately, I know Vancouver owned the Oilers early in the season, but this is not the same Oilers team. They made a lot of changes and additions, and they're in a completely different spot. The Oilers do have a lot more playoff experience here in recent years, and I think that'll help them overcome. So I'm picking an Oilers victory here, which would set up an all-Canadian Western Conference final, sending at least one Canadian team to the finals here. Now, Toronto versus Florida, I think is still going to be too much for Toronto to overcome. We saw the Panthers handle them with ease last year, and I think it could happen again. Yes, Toronto scored more goals, but the defensive difference and the goaltending difference will be too much. Power plays are pretty similar, both over 23%. So that could be a wash. Penalty kill, edge Florida. Goals against, edge Florida. Goaltending, edge Florida. And we saw the nastiness. Now, is Toronto a little bit of a grittier, nastier team than before? Yes, they are. I don't know that they're grittier enough, though, to make a difference with this Florida team. I think if this series becomes even more gritty, I think it's just going to bring out more of the best in Florida. So I am going to pick them to beat the Leafs. Rangers, Hurricanes, I think would be a tough one to call. That could be a possible coin flip. I've been pro Carolina pretty much all season. If you look at the stats here, goals per game, you can't get much closer. 339 to 338. Goals against per game, slight edge to the Hurricanes. Power play, both over 26%, slight edge to the Hurricanes. Penalty kill, both phenomenal, slight edge to the Hurricanes. So my gut keeps saying Hurricanes, and the stats are backing that up. I think Freddie Anderson could be on a roll here to go into the playoffs. Like I said, the Hurricanes have been making it to rounds 2 and 3 and being that one goal short. They've got their guy now with Jake Gensel. And as good as the Rangers were this year, I think the Hurricanes will ultimately take them down. So that sets up a Final Four of Carolina, Florida, and Winnipeg, Edmonton. In the Western Conference, I think the Oilers would probably beat the Jets here. Goals per game, they're a much higher scoring team. Even though Winnipeg does have a slight edge defensively, look at the gap on the special teams here. I think this could possibly be a mismatch. And I think the Oilers could handle the Jets without it going too far in the series. I think we're looking at 5, maybe 6 if Winnipeg's lucky. Hellebuck would have to steal some games, and this would be tougher for him to do against such a high-octane offense. So I would pick the Oilers to win here. Florida versus Carolina would be really tough. This could be a tough series. Florida, I think, would give them a lot of grief here and maybe make it hard on the Hurricanes. But I am picking Carolina to win. They have the special teams edge. They are a slightly higher scoring team. I think Anderson, the way he's playing, if he can keep it up through the playoffs, would be the one of the guys who can outduel or at least stick with Bobrovsky and make that an even match. And then, of course, the Hurricanes are even scoring at a similar, if not higher rate than Florida. So Carolina, to me, feels like a team of destiny this year to make it to the final and get over that hump and go a little further. I think we're going to have a rematch of 2006, Edmonton versus Carolina. Now, I've picked the Oilers since the preseason to win the Stanley Cup. I am sticking with my gut here. I do think it's time for the Oilers and McDavid and Draisaitl before time runs out to end up getting over the hump here and winning the Stanley Cup. Ultimately, they have arguably, when they're running on all cylinders, the best offense in the league. And I think it's going to be too much for the Hurricanes to stop. Last time was the opposite. I think it's time for the Edmonton Oilers to get some much-needed revenge, even though it's been, almost 20 years later. So the tie-breaking question here is how many goals in the final? I would say you're probably looking at about 6 games with an average of about 3 or 4 goals. So we'll say 4 goals a game. So I'd say probably looking at about 24. So that's my bracket reveal. As you can see, I'm sticking with the Edmonton Oilers to win this year's Stanley Cup. Obviously, if you really look back, I picked them in the preseason, and I'm sticking with it. I know there's some flaws to their makeup, and I do have concerns that they're going to be able to do it, but I just have a feeling that they're going to find a way to break through. I mean, usually a lot of teams that win don't always win, with the perfect formula. Like, there's lots to be critical of. Like, look at the Colorado Avalanche a couple of years back. They had average goaltending per se. We've seen numerous times where we've seen goaltending changes and ultimately lead them to a cup, like we saw with the Capitals in 2018, etc. So anything can happen. They say is just get in and have a chance, and then sometimes crazy things happen, like the Florida Panthers going all the way to the finals last year after barely squeaking in at the end and having, a lot of odds stacked against them. It can happen. So give me your predictions. Join our bracket challenge. The link is down below in the pinned comment, and we'll discuss as a community. Of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around for lots more coverage of the playoffs, and of course, all the analysis of all 32 teams, all the news, rumors, everything going around the entire NHL. This is your place to get all your hockey content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.